do with the rapper Fabolous. Now, he's been in the news for the wrong reasons. So it was first reported that he assaulted his wife, who goes by the name of Emily B., who is a co-star on Love and Hip Hop, which is a very terrible show, by the way. But basically, he was in the news because it was alleged that he had assaulted her wife, and to the point where he punched her in the mouth about 7 times and almost like kind of loosening her teeth, so she had to get them removed. So that was a report that was put out. So it was kind of alleged at that point because we didn't see any photos or anything like that. So all the details were pretty slim at that point. But then there was a video that followed with that. Not a video of that particular incident, but a video of her and Fab in front of their home with Emily's father outside trying to attack Fabolous based on what's been happening recently. And so basically Fabolous is in the video wilding out. He's just going crazy. He has a pair of scissors in his hand, pointing it in the direction of Emily's father, and they're just making threats towards each other back and forth. He's saying, the father's saying, "Oh, you're a coward, man up, this and that." And then Fabolous is saying, "Yo, I got a bullet with your name on it." And I'm just like, "Oh, Fab, no." And then whenever he would direct his attention to Emily B., whenever he kind of pointed at her, she would run and cry, almost as if she knew what was about to happen, or at least had a feeling of what was about to happen. So it almost made me believe that, okay, maybe there is some history of domestic violence between these two, if that's the case. And in the video, you can hear like an infant crying of some sort. So I'm assuming it's one of their kids or whatever. But yeah, I'm looking at this video, and I'm like, and I don't want to be the one to jump on something the minute I hear something. Like, I want to know more context behind it. But after this video, I gotta say, like, pure objectivity, it's not looking good for Fab right now. Artie, did you hear about the story beforehand or no?
I did read a little bit about it, but I didn't know about the second video.
Right. So yeah, that video, it came out earlier this week, actually. I think TMZ released it. And I think the reason why her dad was there, her dad and her brother, I think, basically they wanted to come into the home so that they can remove all the weapons in his home, because he has firearms in his home, but like licensed firearms basically. But she felt so in fear of her safety that maybe one day he was going to use one of those guns on her to some capacity. So he called them over to take them out, and then Fab came later on, I guess, and then that's when, I guess, the whole altercation, the verbal altercation ensued. But yeah, he turned himself into police like before that moment, I believe, or was it? I think it was after that moment actually, because based on that video, he was arrested for terroristic threats with the whole bullet and whatever, and then aggravated assault because of the punching and what have you. Yeah, and scissors as well. So it's not looking good for Fab right now, and like I feel like someone of his stature, especially someone who's made music about celebrating women and uplifting women as well, you wouldn't expect that, but that's kind of the difference between real life and rap in the sense, when it comes down to it.
Yeah, I think a lot of rap is art, and I think sometimes we forget, a lot of us forget because we live in this illusion of like how we love our favorite artists.
Yeah.
And if this year has shown, or last year has showed us anything, is that a lot of people we like do really messed up things.
Yeah.
And messed up things that they should be held accountable for.
Right.
And even if it's our favorite athletes or rappers or, filmmakers or whatever, people, it's, I feel like that's the one good thing about social media right now is that we're seeing this, we're accessing this, because for a lot of, especially for assault cases and sexual assault, you don't see or hear anything.
Nope.
And think about all the years that we've grown up listening to our favorite artists.
Yeah.
We don't know anything that's happening. When I think of Cosby, everyone watched that show.
Yeah.
Like everyone was in love with that show and that character and that father figure. And when these allegations came out, no one believed it even.
Right.
Maybe 30 allegations later, okay.
Yeah, it's like, okay, something must have happened.
This is sinking in.
Yeah.
This is not just a bunch of random people who need money or fame at this point.
Right.
It's so late into
their
game's
it's way
career.
outside the statutes of limitations at that point.
And I think as the public and as consumers, we have to wake up a little.
We do, yeah. And we definitely have to wake up. Now, as a consumer, it's up to you whether you want to support that person's art or not. It's totally up to you. I don't think anyone should hold some sort of moral compass over anyone if they still want to support that artist, because there are some people who look at an artist as just an artist, basically. They look at them, the artist, rather than the person. Because there are some people who will go say, oh, he's a terrible rapper because he beats women. And it's like, it doesn't make you a terrible artist. It just means that you don't agree with how they live their life, essentially, which is totally fine. But I don't think you should trash their art because of it. Like, for example, let's say R. Kelly, for example. R. Kelly is easily the greatest R&B singer of the 90s, and he carried that into the 2000s, in my personal opinion. Overall, one of the greatest singers of all time. Yes, he did pee on that girl, I personally believe, because the video was there.
He did a
lot of things.
Stuff.
He did a lot of things. I mean, he tried to marry Aaliyah back in the 90s when she was 14, all that stuff. So that history has been there. But no one can deny this man's level of talent.
And you know what? I think that's the thing, too. Like, I think, especially with the artists that we grew up and we listened to, I think, especially for me now, I find myself, I don't think I would have been bothered by it so much maybe 8 years ago, but I think now I am.
Right.
And I always, and when all this Me Too movement was happening, and you hear about all these artists, like, everyone knows I love Drake.
Yeah.
And I've said, if anything ever comes out on Drake, I'm gonna have to stop listening to Drake.
Right.
And that sucks.
Yeah.
Because I love this artist.
Yeah.
But I know, I think I love humans more. I think I love, especially women. I think the struggle is just crap. Yeah. And when I even think about Chris Brown. Chris Brown has a huge following still. Yeah. Like, the music industry isn't stopping for him. And I think for a lot of men, especially, this is very common. Mm-hmm. And you look at people like Kesha, and their careers are...
that was a terrible situation.
Like, their careers are so different.
Right.
So, I don't know, I think it is definitely up to the person to make that decision. And it's your own kind of game, and if you don't like that artist anymore, you just don't listen to their music.
Exactly.
And that's it. You move on.
Right.
And if you want to, then that's on you.
Right. And in regards to the Me Too movement and what have you, I feel like it's important that a movement like that is out there, but I also feel that it's important that the stories that are being told by these women who choose to disclose that information is totally fine. I just wish that there was a filter on the people who are trying to get in on it when their narrative doesn't really fit the seriousness of the narratives that are actually being told that should be listened to. Because once you get not necessarily a false narrative, but something that isn't as serious or as detrimental, then some people will not take it as seriously anymore.
Yeah, like I think of, especially with sexual assault, there was a story in like Rolling Stone a few years ago that turned out to be false.
Yeah.
And it was a sexual assault story with a frat.
Mm-hmm.
And not that I don't think it took away from anything, because people still know how these colleges and universities are.
Of course.
But it was a time where I think for a lot of people who aren't familiar with these topics or have experiences in them, it made them question how authentic they were.
Yeah.
And when you start thinking like that and you hear about something like Cosby, or you hear about whoever, you start thinking in your head, well, is this really true? And I've written about sexual assault, and I write about this a lot, and I get readers all the time who are like, whatever, like, this is not a thing, and whatever, get over it. And that's part of the struggle. The part of the struggle is getting people to actually tell their stories. We're in a moment where women are so much more confident about it, and men as well, because years ago, this would not be a topic.
Definitely not.
You think Terry Crews is going to come out and talk about assault? Never.
And you would think Terry Crews, big 6'5" black guy, hulking muscles on muscles, and talking about that, like, that's big on him. Like, I give him credit for that.
For sure.
And while we're kind of talking about this right now, actually, in regards to Fabolous or what have you, going to the Nz's and Sorry story that happened a few months back. What was your take on that initially? When you saw like all the headlines and then just reading the stories, like, what was your overall review of that?
I think with that story really hit me.
Right.
I don't know if it's just because Aziz is brown. But honestly, Aziz, like, I really valued his show. I loved the work that he was doing. I had criticisms like anybody else.
Yeah.
But that story just hit my gut, and I think what really hit me, it wasn't so much how Babe.net reported it, because I think they were kind of all over the place, and it kind of backfired on them.
Yeah, it really did, yeah.
Because a lot of older generation, like, female writers, they supported Aziz in this moment. But what I kind of took from it, and what I even wrote about at that time, was I think this is a very valuable lesson of what dating, sex, and love looks like in 2018.
Absolutely.
Because, someone will say this is a bad date, he doesn't know social cues, blah, blah. I'm like, this is the problem with dating now.
Yeah.
And this is honestly a version of it where you act a certain way, you make social cues, you say things, and people are not picking it up.
Yeah.
Or they're aggressive, or they don't understand consent. And I think we're in this strange realm now. Like, we're actually working on a story. I'm working on a story right now about how to date in the Me Too movement.
Right.
Because people are, like, nervous suddenly to, like, approach people.
I know, it's like, is it sexual harassment?
And, like, I think that's ridiculous. I think it's common sense of, like, what is harassment, what isn't.
Right.
But then you hear about these stories of, like, people calling harassment when someone's being touched on the shoulder.
Exactly. Oh my God, I was assaulted, guys. I was assaulted.
And for some, that could be flirting, or for some, that could feel like assault, right?
Right.
You don't know every single person. It's so subjective.
Right.
So I think with Aziz, oh God, it sucks because like there's no brown guys out there at all.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, like we're down to one now. It's like Hassan, Minaj, but it just really like caught me by surprise of how real that date was for people I know.
Absolutely.
For people like myself, for my female friends, I think for one whole week, we all talked about how we could relate to that story.
Right.
And that's sad.
It really is.
Like,
it really
that's
is.
just sad.
It absolutely is, because like, as a man, I can never understand what a woman has gone through in that regard. I can only empathize and just kind of learn from those experiences and just have that open dialogue of communication, knowing what's right, what she feels comfortable with, so on and so forth. Me reading that story like, and just kind of reviewing it and what have you, for me, when I read that story, I'm just like, it just sounded like a really bad date on both ends. And like there was like a lack of communication, because one of the things that kept on popping up in that article was, oh, he didn't pick up on my nonverbal cues. I would mumble if I didn't like something. It's like, but that's very subjective, because how is he supposed to know that? Unless if you guys have built up this long rapport where he kind of knows you in and out in a sense, how is he supposed to know that? So I'm not taking the seriousness away from the situation, because I'm sure she felt uncomfortable, but you can't say, oh, he's supposed to know that when you guys barely know each other in that sense.
I think with that story, the biggest like punch for me was like, she said that she doesn't want to have sex, right?
Right.
And once someone says that,
yeah,
like, that's it.
Right.
Like there's no real way working around it unless magically she changes her mind.
Yeah.
But once she said it, she said it. And then all of the actions following it, he took her to the bedroom and to the couch.
Right.
And tried kissing her and like bent her over. And I was like, okay, buddy, you're not getting laid.
Yeah.
Like you're not smooth, you're not cool, and you're not getting laid.
Right.
Just end it now.
Yeah.
Because you should know by now.
Exactly.
Right? Like you should know that this person is just isn't into it.
Right.
But obviously he is a celebrity. He is a person of power.
Yeah.
And in those situations, I don't know Aziz, but I can only imagine as a celebrity, if you invite someone out, you take them back home, you're probably thinking you're gonna get laid.
Exactly.
And then if you don't, you kind of want to work your way around it because again, you're the celebrity. You invited her. You paid for dinner. And, that's the sad part of all of this is that...
like the entitlement and what have
we don't know how to have a human conversation.
Yeah.
And people's egos get too much into it that if someone doesn't want to have sex with you, you just can't even be like, oh, okay, I get it. It's like, oh, well, no, why?
Exactly.
Like, am I unattractive?
Exactly.
Do you not like my place?
Right. And to be fair as well, like, I think, like, with the whole dating scene as well, there are a lot of people, who... and not even a lot of people, like, there are some women who want that chase element, so to speak. And I'm not saying that it was, like, justifiable on his end to keep on going for it. But, again, him being a celebrity, him being in that light, and some women liking that chase element, like, some women, like, let's say a woman says, no, I don't really want to do it, and then the guy doesn't do anything, and then the next day they talk, it's like, oh, yeah, you're not really aggressive. Like, I want the more aggressive type. So maybe, for all I know, for all we know, he might be used to that type. He might have had that type his entire life, and he's thinking, oh, there's just another girl who likes that kind of thing. So maybe that's what he's thinking. I'm not saying that's what he was thinking, but because there are some people who kind of like that element and what have you, maybe that could be a potential reason as to why he's still trying to pursue it. And even just reading that article, it was just like, I think at one point in time I read they were naked or something like that. Like, they were both naked or at least half naked. So I'm trying to think, where did the no and the yes begin? You know what I mean? So for me, there's way too many inconsistencies I was trying to grasp hold of. I'm like, what happened? Like, where was a communication breakdown? I
think the story was reported in a very, not the best way, I have to say. And it sucks because I think it really backfired on what the bigger issue is, which is around consent still, right? And it sort of... It took, like, that story blew up all over the place, and it made sort of feminists kind of attack each other because there were, like, older women who were feminists who were like, well, maybe she should just, like, punch him in the face and got out. And the younger ones are like, well, maybe she didn't want to get assaulted. Right. So there's so many ends to this, and you truly don't know a person. And, in our dating age, people hook up and meet strangers all the time. Exactly. You don't know how they are. Right. Right? And that's a risk that you take when you are with someone and you're having sex with them. And... I mean, the only thing I can hope for is that people have a better understanding of what dating is like. Exactly. And, like, picking up social cues. Right. And, like, understanding when someone's body is into you or not. Right. For sure. And kind of, going our way around back to Fabolous and Emily B. Now that this is out, I can only imagine what she has gone through within the last week or so.
But it also leads me to think, how long has she been dealing with this for?
Yeah,
and if it's been for a long time, then I think it's time for her to just call it quits with this guy. I know that's the father of your child, but at the end of the day, your personal welfare and the welfare of your children as well has to be paramount over everything else. Forget the lifestyle and like the luxury living and all that stuff, because unfortunately some women can't let that go, right? Because they feel comfortable in that aspect. But when your life is on the line in that regard, like, you got to put that to the side, basically.
Yeah, I hope she has good family members and friends who are supportive in that sense, because for a lot of women, it's really hard to leave those relationships.
Right.
And even when, especially with celebrities and money is involved, sometimes it's not even about the money. I think people, there's a lot of mental health,
100%.
Like, when you're just sort of broken down so much, and there's a lot of fear of, like, what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
When you're kind of by yourself, or you're not so independent, and... Yeah, it's, you hear stories all the time about assault, and then people just stay.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really sad cycle, too. It's really hard to get out of it.
It really is. So hopefully she gets out of that cycle. Hopefully Fab can learn from this entire experience and just kind of rebuild himself into a better man overall.
Own up to it, too.
Right.
I think that's one of the biggest things. So people are owning up to what they're doing.
Exactly.
And, I'm not saying this is right. Obviously, it's not right, but... Everyone has done messed up things.
Exactly.
You need to really own up to it, especially when you're a public figure.
Exactly.
Like, come clean.
Yeah.
And let the public decide what to do with you.
Exactly. And then, just learn from that mistake to be a better person after that going forward, whether or not you're going to be with that woman. At least be a better father to your children, after this whole entire ordeal. And then if they don't end up being back together, then at least learn to be somewhat of a confidant of sorts, or a companion to some platonic manner, if that's the case going forward.
Yeah, and violence is a cycle. So when when people see this in their families, children can do it.
Yeah.
And you don't want that cycle to continue.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, what do you guys think of this entire situation? Whatever it is, hit us up on social media. Hit up the show at Cool Radio CC on as many platforms as possible, and then chime in. Cool!